That's
Hard
one of
to
the
get.
things that veterans
Hard to
are
get.
so disappointed with, or often disappointed with, when they transition to the outside, because they don't have that same camaraderie that they had in uniform.
Sure.
Because you're shoulder to shoulder with the person next to you, focusing on a big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever that is, a really, really important mission, and it's life or death stuff. It's a big deal.
We're going to definitely get into that at the end. We were talking right before camera, and you said life-defining moments. What were some of your early life-defining moments after OCS?
Yeah, so, David, I would tell you I have a philosophy that your defining moments are what make you who you are. So everybody kind of moves along in life on a certain equilibrium. And then there's these things that happen to us, and they push us harder and they stretch us farther than we ever imagined. And when we are successful in those life-defining moments, we never go back to being that person that we were.
Because you've been tested and proven to yourself you can do it.
Yeah. What is it? The hardest steel is forged in the hottest fire. That's what it's all about, man. And so I'll give you an example. When I was a Navy commander, I was at the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command 5th Fleet in Bahrain, and I was the public affairs chief there.
And for us that don't know, what a commander is,
that's a
what?
lieutenant colonel.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, lieutenant colonel. And so I was the public affairs chief at the forward component of the Navy, focused on Middle East operations. And there was a General John Abizaid, who had taken over from Tommy Franks after the drive into Baghdad in 2003. He was looking for somebody to be his public affairs chief, and he was asking for a 1-star general. And I was at 05. I was a lieutenant colonel level guy, and the Navy nominated me. And and I, because of my experiences and some other things, I ended up being the guy that was selected. And so I spent the next 2 years traveling around with General Abizaid in the back of his airplane on all these diplomatic missions and handling his communications and the communications of the entire theater.
Wow.
Iraq and Afghanistan, the overarching sort of public affairs position.
Let me interrupt 1 second. When you say communication, so communication the outside world sees what you're putting out to the public.
That's the public communications.
Got it.
The public affairs, the media, the social media.
Correct. Okay.
The messaging about how, and, keeping that messaging aligned between your commander and your senior staffers and the White House and the Secretary of Defense.
And you're helping to have
that.
to craft this message?
That's right.
It's a big deal.
So you're sitting there in the boss's hip pocket, and you're saying, okay, boss, you're getting ready to go in and, meet with President Mubarak, and afterwards they're going to want to do a press briefing here in the palace in Cairo. So, we're going to talk about, the diplomatic relations and the strong, firm commitment of working with our allies in Egypt, et cetera, that kind of stuff. And also, making sure that there's an alignment and an integration with the messaging and the policy messaging from Washington, D.C., and, the Secretary of Defense's office, et cetera. So anyway, but the point was, David, was that particular job, that particular role, 2 years long, it was relentless, and it was intense, and it was, 4 hours of sleep a night, get up the next morning, get your situational awareness of what's happened so that you can give that best military advice to your leader and be able to, help that leader be successful. And so those 2 years were a defining moment in my career. They really stretched me to a point that I didn't realize that I could be at. And I grew from that.
And I'm sure that had to get your name on the radar, maybe, or kind of elevate you a little bit in other circles.
Yeah, I'll give you another one. On October 12th, 2000, I was working in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon, and I got a call at like 6:30 in the morning from a gent who I worked with. He was telling me he wasn't going to be in. He was the duty officer in the Pentagon, and he was stuck there because USS Cole had been bombed by al-Qaeda terrorists in Aden, Yemen. And then that was the first call. And then the second call I got was about a half an hour later that said, pack your bags, you're going to Yemen. And so I ended up on
Wow.
the airplane with the Foreign Emergency Support Team, which is the crisis team that we send wherever there's an act of international terrorism that impacts, American people, American forces, etc. And so I went with the FES to aid in Yemen, and I was there for, a month and a half or whatever it was, while we worked on the recovery of USS Cole. That was another one of those scenarios where, folded into a brand new organization, providing, the best guidance to the Joint Task Force commander, and also to Ambassador Barbara Bodine, who was the American ambassador to Yemen at that time, and functioning sort of in that same role as an advisor
Wow.
on strategy and communication. That was another one of those situations where, you get it, you sleep when you can and work around the clock, because basically the mission's not going to stop and it's coming at you at 1,000 miles an hour. That stretches you. That, pulls you in a way that you're never going to go back to being who you were before that.